Hey BookTube! I'm the Book Mage, welcome back to my channel and to potentially my craziest vlog idea yet. So let me explain what I'm going to be doing. So I just got done challenging myself to read out of my comfort zone, and for that challenge the very last book that I read was actually an audiobook. And that was the first audiobook I've listened to in over 10 years. I realise audiobooks are always increasing in popularity, but for me, I just don't personally like them. I just kind of like to read like at my own pace. I like to read like with my own intonation, and being someone with ADHD, I tend to like to sort of like drift off into thought quite a lot when I read. And I mainly read fantasy, like adult high fantasy, and I don't necessarily think that reading that in an audiobook, probably on double speed, is going to be like that easily digestible. So I don't have the best impression of audiobooks. However, one thing I have noticed on BookTube is that you guys read a lot of books. There are some people I follow that are wrapping up like 10 plus books every month, and like, I wish I could be that girl. And I know that this has a lot to do with people having like different amounts of times and like the books that people are reading. There's like a lot of variations. However, one thing that like so many people have in common is that they will listen to like 1 or 2 audiobooks a month. And obviously an audiobook is something that you can listen to while you do something else. And as someone who spends like a lot of time just drawing and like doing things inside the house, I have a lot of time that I could convert to being audiobook time. And it got me to thinking, if I were the kind of person that listened to audiobooks like just constantly in my downtime, how many books could I be reading? Because I do a fair amount of stuff, and in that time I will be listening to podcasts while I'm doing something else. Usually I'll be listening to like the Morbid podcast or the Adventure Zone. And like, if I swapped out that time for listening to audiobooks, I reckon I could read quite a lot of books in a very short space of time. So what I am hoping to do for this challenge is, for the entire next week, that is Monday to Sunday, in basically any sort of downtime that I get where I'm not needing to like use my ears for anything else, I am going to be listening to audiobooks, and I'm going to see how many books I can actually read in a week. Now, as someone who doesn't normally listen to audiobooks, I don't know how this is going to go, especially because, like, as I said, I have ADHD, and if I get distracted while I'm reading a physical book, at least like my hands are on the page and like I kind of vaguely know where I got up to. But if I like lose my train of thought and drift off during an audiobook, I'm gonna have no idea how far back to rewind. There's a lot that could go wrong. But for science, for BookTube science, I'm giving it a go. So for the next 7 days, I'm going to prioritise listening to audiobooks above all else, and I'm going to see how many books I can read in just a week. And my goal, like by the end of this, I would like to know specifically how many hours I've managed to listen to in 7 days, and like how many entire books that actually equates to. So I'm hoping you'll stick around to like see how I fare. I'm hoping to do pretty constant checkups like for every single day of the week. And hopefully I don't burn my brain out doing this. So if that sounds like something you'd like to join me for, please stick around, and I'll see you for my first update. Good morning! I am about to start my first audiobook of the week. So for my first read, or listen, this week, I have chosen Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Now, this is not like the usual kind of book that I would read, but to be fair, I think most books I'm going to end up picking are probably not going to be like my usual kind of genre. As someone who reads mainly high fantasy, I don't think that like an epic adult high fantasy is really going to work as an audiobook for me. That's just how I feel. So we're branching out a little bit. But this one I have chosen because I'm pretty sure this follows like the story of a band through like, I think it might be like the 70s, not entirely sure, but I'm assuming this is gonna have like band drama and stuff, and I think that's something I could enjoy. I know that this book is quite popular, a lot of people like it, so I feel like that maybe kind of bodes well. Like I know Taylor Jenkins Reid, I've never read anything by her, but I know that she is a very popular author, especially on like BookTube. That, and I do know that the audiobook for this is meant to be quite good. I'm pretty sure it has like a full cast. That's what I've gone for my first read, and I'm hoping it goes well. I'm actually at work today, so I am going to have to like hurry up and go and log on and actually start working, but I can listen to this while I work. And I will check up with you guys when I get to my lunch break, and I'll let you know like where I am, how I've got on, if I'm liking it, if this is a disaster. We'll see how this goes. But yeah, wish me luck. I think my pajamas are like kind of giving vibes. I think it's the long sleeves. That, and it has a hood. So, good afternoon. I am now on my lunch break and I have made some pretty good progress, I think, getting through Daisy Jones and the Six. So far, I'm liking things, and I like that the audiobook has like a reason that you're like listening to it as an audiobook, because it sounds like you're listening to the recordings of the journalist. Like since I don't really like audiobooks, I kind of like tricking my brain into thinking like this is how it's supposed to be listened to. Does any of that make sense? Like there's a contextual reason like within the fiction that means that it would be told through audio. Am I making sense? The cast is pretty good as well. I can mainly like tell people's voices apart. I might have trouble sometimes. There are a few characters, it tends to be like the more like the side characters. Occasionally I'm just like, which one are you? But for the most part, I think I'm fine with it. It is getting me through the work day. I don't really have any like meetings on Mondays, and I can do my work while like listening to something else. I'm not sure if I could do that if it was like an epic fantasy or something, but it works for this audiobook, so I think I'm enjoying it at the moment. I'm not like 100% on like the plot, like the setting, like I'm enjoying it, I think, because I do like when I like things about like gigs and music and that sort of thing. Like I like that as like a topic. I'm just more used to it when it's like heavy metal or something. So yeah, so far I'm getting kind of like more like maybe like Stevie Nicks vibes from Daisy. Those are the sort of like vibes I get anyway. I say that as someone who doesn't know anything about music that isn't like heavy metal. So but yeah, I think it's pretty good so far. I think I'm getting through it really, really quickly as well, because this is definitely a shorter audiobook, and I think I've picked well having a full cast and a shorter audiobook, and like one that makes sense to be like done via audio. I feel like I've tried to start off in a way that will please everything like in my brain. I'm definitely easing myself into it, and I feel like so far it's going well. I do realise that I have like 6.5 more days of this, so you would hope it was going well. So as for the plan, I'm now on my lunch break, I think I mentioned, so I'm gonna get like a little snack or something to eat, and I'm probably going to like, I don't know what I'm gonna do like on my actual lunch, but it will, I guess, involve listening to more of Daisy Jones and the Six, and I don't know, I reckon actually I might be able to finish this like before the end of my workday maybe, and potentially start something else. I don't really know. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself though. Maybe I will use part of my lunch break to like have a trawl through like my library's like audiobooks catalogue. I'm a member of 2 different libraries. One's like a free like city library, and then the other one I pay for, and the free city library has like, they do not have the best collection, and their website is horrendous. The library that I pay for definitely has a better collection, but you can't search by like genre or format. You have to search by title or author or ISBN, and like if I just want to browse, there's literally no way I can do that. The only categories you can actually browse are newly added or popular, so I guess I'm either going to be listening to something new or popular, which, I mean, I guess if it's popular, I don't know. Yeah, maybe I'll use my lunch break to figure out some more potential reads for this week, because there could be a lot of them. Okay, I feel like I'm getting rambly and I have nothing else to like really add, because like what else can I really say about an audiobook that like I haven't even finished yet? So that's where I'm at. I'm gonna grab something to eat and then go back to work, and maybe I will also change it to something more comfortable, because like this is cute. Like I put this on because I knew that I was vlogging, and like also it's cute, it's comfy pajamas, but I definitely could be comfier. Alright, okay, I'll see you in the next update. Hey guys, so I am currently partway through Daisy Jones and the Six. I think I'm past the halfway mark now, so I'm feeling like I'm doing pretty good. I'm feeling like I'm being pretty productive. I finished work a little while ago, and like I'm sort of struggling to think of like things to do, like with my eyes and my hands, to like keep myself busy so that I'm not just like listening to something and like staring into space, because that's not working. And normally I would draw, but like I'm not in the best mood to do like proper artwork, and my iPad for like doodling is out of charge. But I'm listening to like a story about like a band, and like they're just talking about like being on tour and like band drama and things, and it's been a while since I have worked on my battle jacket, so I feel like I've got like quite a ways to go before this is finished. I do have like a bunch of gigs like planned for later in the year. I have tickets to quite a lot of things, pretty much like all over like spring and summer, so I kind of like want to work on this a bit more. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can't get like my cute Elfia headphones to connect to my laptop's Bluetooth, if I can get that working, and I'm going to work on stitching maybe like a few more patches onto my vest. And I feel like that feels very appropriate. So I'm just gonna sort of like chill and sew for a bit, and usually when I do this I can get lost like just sewing and stitching for like quite a few hours without really realizing how much time has passed. So I'm hoping I can get into like that like ADHD headspace and just devote myself to like a kind of like fun, calming, mindless task while I listen to this audiobook. So that is what we're gonna do. I feel like when this is finished I'm gonna have to do like a full tour of patches, because like the back is still kind of a bit bare at the moment, but like I love the front. Like this top bit, this top section, it gives me absolute life. So update, I have now finished Daisy Jones and the Six, and I admit I can't really see like all the hype about it. I remember this being like really big on BookTube like when it first came out, and I don't get the hype. It is definitely good, like it's an enjoyable story and I did like it, and as well I think it is a good audiobook and it was a good choice for an audiobook. I just don't think it's like, at least from how I see it, it's not as good as I expected it to be, I guess from like all the hype. That said, I did enjoy it. I do think that I think I can kind of mostly safely say that if anything deals with kind of like the alternative-ish music scene, because obviously in this it kind of like, it moves between like rock and pop, and I'm thinking like, I don't know if this necessarily counts, but I think I do kind of like that as, not necessarily like a setting, but like as like a theme. I think when like music and bands and performances and things are in fiction, I think I do like it. And the fact that this had like a full cast as well for the audiobook, I feel like that was really, really good. It was actually quite nice to listen to this sort of like fictional band drama and be like sewing my battle jacket, which I have rather unceremoniously just like chucked behind me, but like, does anyone treat cut-offs any other way? Yeah, so I think I definitely did enjoy it. I think it probably was more enjoyable as well as an audiobook than as like if I had read it in print. And again, it makes sense in context with it being this sort of like, as though you're like playing back like the audio files, like the recordings from these interviews. Like it makes perfect sense. I like the fact that there are like contextual reasons as to why you might listen to this as an audiobook. That makes sense to me and I enjoy that. I don't think that's going to be able to like be the case for like all the audiobooks that I'm gonna try and listen to, because I mean, especially if you've got like a fantasy, like how is that gonna work? So I'm like appreciating that like while I can. Although I will say a lot of this book was a lot more to do with just like relationship drama and like people drama than I had sort of anticipated. I kind of thought that it might get a bit darker, or that it might get a bit more like there would maybe be like more events happening, because I do feel like when I finished it, it felt quite short, and I know this is like one of the shorter audiobooks, which is kind of why I picked it for like the first one. And when it got to the finishing point, I almost expected there to be like more story, just more stuff happening, more drama, more, I don't know, it was very much like interpersonal drama. And again, I think it's because like when I went into it I thought maybe it would be like a bit more of like an alternative band, and so like the drama that you get with alternative bands in the real world is literally insane. I don't want to get into it here, but like the kind of drama that this band faces is like so tame compared to like what I am used to hearing. That may have also played into it, but like I did enjoy this overall. I'm not sure whether I'm gonna give this like, it's definitely at least like a 3 stars. Like I feel like it was perfectly enjoyable, and like specifically in audiobook form. I think if I'd read this as print I might have rated it like less, but I don't know. I don't know if it's like a 3.5, maybe somewhere between like a 3 and a 3.5. I'll like figure that out. I'll maybe like put the scores into Corpoil and like see what it comes out as. But yeah, so far I'm feeling like I'm off to a good start. I'm not even done with the whole day yet, and I finished my first audiobook, so I feel like I'm going to choose a second audiobook. Because if I can read more than a book a day this week, that would be even better. So I feel like my minimum that I'm aiming for is like hopefully like 1 book every day, but if I can read more, I will take the extra credit. So yeah, I think I might, I don't have any of like my login stuff on my phone because I did it over my laptop, which is stupid, but I feel like I'd like bookmarked a few things, and I'm pretty sure one of the things that I bookmarked was The Martian by Andy Weir, I think. I don't have anything in front of me, so this is all like completely from memory, but I've seen the film that is based on this book, but I don't feel like knowing the ending will necessarily like change my enjoyment. I feel like, I'm pretty sure the plot of The Martian is that there's like a manned mission to Mars and a guy gets like left behind. I can't remember why, but he gets like left behind and he has to like survive on Mars and then try and figure out a way to like get home back to Earth. I am feeling like I would like to be a bit more in my comfort zone, which tends to be like fantasy, sci-fi, and sometimes horror. I don't necessarily feel like tackling a fantasy right now because honestly, when I was browsing, I didn't really see any fantasy that like I think I would like to read either right now or as an audiobook, because a lot of things were like a Game of Thrones or Throne of Glass, and it's like I've either read these or like it's not something that I don't want to tackle like a massive adult fantasy in this vlog. I feel like a sci-fi is like more into my comfort zone, but I feel like I'm assuming, because if it's one guy like trapped on a planet, it's always just going to be like his inner monologue, which would make sense to have it narrated to me. I have kind of had that in the back of my head for like something that I might want to try this week, and if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure this is like one of like the shortest audiobooks that I saw, because I'm sure it said it was like 6 and something hours, like 6.5 hours, which if I'm listening to it on double speed is like, it's going to be between like 3 and 3.5 hours to listen to, which is so short. So I think it is a short book though, so I think I have convinced myself that that's the next thing I'm going to listen to. And maybe it might be sort of nice if it's not so intense, because if I'm gonna listen to something, like if I'm gonna blast through something in like the 3.5 hours before I go to sleep, like I don't want to turn my brain to mush trying to like keep up with something. But I feel like I can finish this tonight, like if I start it like now, because I'm gonna be awake for at least the next like 4 and a bit hours. So like I could definitely, like if I just blast through this like all in one sitting, maybe like do some, I don't know, drawing or something. Okay, I feel like that's what I'm gonna do because my fingers hurt from sewing. So there is my plan. I'm done with Daisy Jones and the Six, so I have one audiobook down. I'm going to start my second audiobook, so I'm going to start The Martian by Andy Weir. I probably won't check in again this evening because it might be like after midnight by the time that I actually like finish listening to this, but I will check in with my thoughts as well first thing in the morning. I'm back at work again tomorrow, and I think I'm gonna relax and get ready for bed and start listening to it and just sort of wind down, and I will check up again in the morning. Good morning. Small update. Guess who thought for some reason that The Martian was like a less than 7 hours audiobook? So it turns out it's like 11 hours long. I don't know how I didn't see that. I don't know how I didn't notice that. I guess I must have just been looking like at something else. Was I looking at a different audiobook? Like I have no idea. So yeah, I thought it would be like less than 7 hours, like 6 hours and something. So I was thinking like, oh, 3.5 hours and I can have this audiobook finished, right? Wrong. It's actually longer than the previous audiobook. It's 11 hours long, which means that it's like it's 5.5 hours, but obviously I'm not doing that like all in one sitting. So I do have a couple hours. I think I've got like 2 hours left on it. So I'm going to finish that this morning while I work. And I do also have like meetings and things at work today, so like I can't listen to the audiobook the whole time. Yeah, that that is a slight unforeseen road bump, but like it's fine. Like instead of listening to 2 books in like a day, I've listened to nearly 2 in a day, which is like that's still a lot. Combined, those audiobooks are like 20 hours long, so like I've done almost like 10 hours of reading, like 10 hours of actual like real-time listening in a day. It's not bad. I am enjoying the book so far. I should probably like mention that. It's definitely not my favorite thing, but again, I feel like the whole thing about having, it doesn't really have like a full cast, but for the most part you're hearing it just from like the main character's perspective, and it's his logs, so like it makes sense to me that this would be like first person spoken, like every time he does like a check-in. Again, I'm trying to find things that like fit and work for me, which won't always be the case because I definitely want to try and like risk some fantasy at some point this week. But for now, yeah, we're sticking to it, and I'm pretty sure I have seen the film as well because I remember like a lot of what's going on, but it's not really detracting from my enjoyment. The only thing is there are a couple times where I realise like I'm not 100% paying attention, and I think, I don't know whether it's because there's obviously a lot of like talk about like the machinery or the science or like the, you know, like the fictional science or whatever. When it starts going into like numbers and things, my brain thinks Do I know what we're talking about? Have I been paying attention? And sometimes it's yes and sometimes it's no, but like I feel like I'm context wise I'm fine, so like it's fine. It's just talking about like another machine, like it's fine if I don't know exactly what's going on, but I do feel like if I were reading this in print I wouldn't have that issue. So yeah, that's where I'm at. So I'm gonna finish The Martian and then I'm gonna probably about maybe like it depends how much longer it takes me to get through like these like last like couple hours of this audiobook. I'm hoping maybe I can be done by like lunchtime, but we'll see. And then I have to start something else like immediately if I want to keep on track. So yeah, we're going well so far. Not sure how I'll be doing by the end of this week, but for now I'm good. So okay, that's it. Okay, so no idea why I look so blue on here, but fine. So it is my lunch break and I didn't get to finish all of the audiobooks. Like I have like the teeniest little bit left to go. It's definitely picking up a lot towards the end. However, a lot of this book is about like supplies and nutrition, and like there's a lot of focus on like all resources like air and power, but also food. And I figured it might be slightly appropriate if for lunch I had like some of this, like it's supposed to be like nutritionally complete, like just add water kind of spaghetti. It's carbonara. I feel like this is as close to like astronaut food as I'm gonna get. It's the fact that it's like this completely vegan, nutritionally complete, like it sounds sketchy, but if it tastes like carbonara, it tastes like carbonara. I feel like if the character's eating like astronaut meal rations, I should eat the closest thing to like astronaut meal rations, so it doesn't look that bad, but it does not smell great. I mean, it definitely tastes like it should be astronaut food. I do not envy the character if this is like what his meal rations are like. Okay, so I finished The Martian. It turned out to be a lot longer than I thought it was going to be, because I've seen the film and I just thought it would be like a lot quicker than that. I did know like pretty much what was going to happen the whole time. Like I wasn't really, it's hard to be like tense when you kind of like you know vaguely like what's going to happen. That said, it was still enjoyable, it was still really entertaining. I think it was a good idea of me to pick something that for the most part kind of sounded like it could have been like as if you're playing like audio logs or something, even though like I'm assuming in context they're written down. I'm not entirely sure. Either way, I think this is another one where in context it makes sense to listen to it as like an audiobook, so that definitely helped. And I think it was mainly like from the perspective of the main character, like the astronaut that's stranded, but there are other characters in there as well, and obviously it's the same narrator like talking for those other characters and other perspectives, so I think that might like maybe it helped like ease me into the idea of one person narrating for like multiple characters as opposed to Daisy Jones, which was like a full cast. So I think I'm gonna end up giving this like maybe like a 3.5. It's definitely not a 4 stars. I was thinking about like 3. I think I would enjoy things more as like a physical book than an audiobook. However, I feel like it was pretty well paced, it was pretty entertaining. It did kind of get like a bit samey, and it's like, you know, there are only so many things that can go wrong for you to then fix. It was kind of like, thing goes wrong, fix it, thing goes wrong, fix it. I've given it like a 3.5 stars. I think in comparison, I probably enjoy this story more than Daisy Jones and the Six. However, experience-wise, Daisy Jones was a full cast audiobook. I think I enjoyed the experience of listening to that one more. And also it was shorter. I think if I'd read these as books, I would like The Martian better, and I prefer its story and its plot, but having like a full cast is almost kind of like listening to a radio play. You've only removed the visual medium and everything else is kind of like there because you have a full cast. So I don't know if this is going to completely sort of screw me over, because I had thought that I would be picking up my next book like straight away Tuesday morning, and I'm not sure what other audiobooks to like. I'm kind of like limited to like what I can actually get my hands on, because I don't want to like pay for anything one-off and then just like own it forever. I will do that with a book, but I don't think I want to do that with an audiobook because I don't know if I'm going to enjoy them yet. Like, I'm still in the very early stages. So what I can see available to me is an audiobook for Three Dark Crowns by Kendara Blake. Now, I think this is YA, but it is a fantasy. Part of the thing that I've said is that I don't think I will necessarily enjoy fantasy as an audiobook because I like to think about things, I like to consider things, I like to just like if we're introduced to like a new world, like sometimes I like to, you know, if we get a description of something, sometimes I like to pause and flip to like the map if there is one, for example, and just like have a look at where things are in relation to each other, like if we move to a new location, or sometimes someone will say something and I'll just like, I don't know, I might just like to have like a little think about it. Or more often than not, I will get distracted for like ADHD reasons. So interesting to see how it will go, but it is a YA, so I feel like it's going to be way less intense. Like, I'm not sure how intense a YA is going to be. I think I'm choosing this as my next audiobook. Now this one is about 10 hours long, but then that's only 5 hours, and I feel like I want to do some drawing today. Maybe, I think, hopefully. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on the audiobook, I'm going to finish working, and then after work I might do like some drawing and listen to it, and I will check up either like maybe at the end of the night, or like, can I finish this tonight? Maybe? We'll see. It's getting close to like 5 o'clock, but 5 straight hours of audio would lead me to like 10 o'clock, and I don't go to bed at 10 o'clock, so I feel like I can do this before midnight. I have a good feeling. I don't want to jinx it though. So, next audiobook, 3 Dark Crowns. Okay, I've got this, let's do this. Hello, so, it's a little bit later. I've finished work, and like, I'm like an hour and a half, maybe a bit more, into 3 Dark Crowns. First things first, it's very YA. It's like, within like the very first chapter, you've got like 16-year-old, clearly like a very pretty girl who's being like, you know where they're trying to downplay the prettiness like every like mid like 2010s kind of YA would, where it's like, because she's skinny with long hair and it's, oh but she's so small, she's too small, she's so tiny, and then it's like, oh her hair is so long, and it's like, but like as bad things, and I'm like, this girl is like the exact same like standard of beauty as like every other YA main protagonist, so I feel like I kind of know what I'm getting in for. I think at this point, because I didn't really read much of the synopsis, but from what I can kind of gather, there are like 3 triplets and they all have like a different power. So like one's got like poison powers, one has like nature powers that can like control plants and animals and things, and then one has like elemental powers, which honestly sounds like the coolest, but okay. And one of these girls will become queens and the other 2 will die, like they'll get killed off. I don't know. Anyway, it's very YA fantasy plot, but like it's kind of fine at the moment. It's not so bad for having something on like in the background while I'm doing something else. Although, and I do not think this is a spoiler, because like I was thinking this like literally in the very first chapter, and I'm only like a couple chapters in really, but in the very first chapter you have a girl who's been like, it's the poison queen or the poison heir or whatever. She very clearly like does not have any poison powers, and people are saying like, you know, she's thinking like, oh well, they might come in like on my 16th birthday or whatever. And then the very next girl that you see, the girl who's meant to have like nature powers or whatever, doesn't have like a familiar, and it's like, oh well, you'll get a familiar at some point, or like she can't even like bloom a flower or whatever. And I'm like, okay, either one, they've all been switched. If they are like the triplets, like either they've been switched, so like the poison one probably has like the nature powers, or the nature one has the poison powers or whatever, which is like, yeah, no wonder she's not gonna have poison powers, or they just don't have powers. Everyone's like, oh yeah, you can totally do this, yeah, you've definitely got these powers, and it's like, no they don't, no they don't. Either they haven't come in yet, or they just don't have them, full stop, or there's been like a switcheroo going on. So like that's literally my thoughts within like the first chapter, and I forget why like fantasy YA is like this. There was literally like, oh, within the very first chapter there was a dance with like a suave handsome stranger or whatever, and it's like, you've been dancing with them too long, and it's like, this is the first chapter and we're already on this. There are definitely like love interests being set up the whole way, and I'm just like, okay, I see where we're going, but like it's fine. Something to like listen to in that, like if I was reading this as a main book, I mean I probably wouldn't have picked it up in the first place, but as like, if I'm listening to it as like a secondary task while I do something like draw or work, and it was kind of interesting to be like doing like my work emails and like hearing this in the background. Although that is one thing I will say, one of the things that I really hate is sometimes, especially Americans, it's the way that things are pronounced. It's the exact reason why I will not watch dubbed anime, because it's always dubbed by Americans, and Americans will never Google how to pronounce something, they'll just make it up. There's been so many things where I've been so annoyed by the pronunciation. Like, one of the main characters is called Arsinoe. I had to literally Google what her name was because I was so confused about what they were saying. So I'll put it here, like this is how her name is spelled, and sometimes you can spell Arsinoe like this with an umlaut, and I'm pretty sure it's from Greek, like Persephone, like that's the kind of, like you pronounce the E, so Arsinoe is like, that's a really pretty name. Oh my god, the audiobook narrator says Arsinoe. The whole time I'm like, how are you, this is like literally one of your three main characters, how are you going to pronounce their name wrong? How are you going to be calling this girl Arsinoe for the whole book? As a Brit, to me it sounds like you're saying arse-annoy, and I cannot take it seriously. I hate it so much. It's not even the only thing though, this is definitely the worst one. This is like the most egregious mispronunciation, and there's no way that it's meant to be pronounced arse-annoy. I really don't like this narrator in particular. Anyway, I'm so sorry if your name is actually Arsinoe, and for the rest of your life people are going to call you Arse-annoy, because, oh, that's going to be the worst. Look, I honestly feel like I would be having a much better time if it wasn't for this god-awful narrator. Like, I realised it was probably like, when, I can't remember when this came out, but it was probably like the mid, like, 2010s or whatever, and so, like, I realised it was probably like, okay, yeah, girly YA fantasy, just move it out the door. But at the same time, Arsinoe. I can't do it. Anyway, that's my update. I've got my iPad and I am feeling like drawing. It's Valentine's Day. I completely forgot. I would have drawn like some like kinky Valentine's Day art or something, but I completely forgot. But yeah, I'm probably gonna go and draw like, I don't know, like fantasy steady ship art on my iPad. So I'm gonna see how much of this I can get through by the end of tonight. So I have finished Three Dark Crowns by Kendara Blake, and the YA was very strong in this book. Before I say anything else, I feel like I do have to say I am gonna have to do some like careful editing of like one of my earlier clips, because pretty much straight after I'd read the first chapter I got kind of like I got a vibe of where we were going, and it turns out that what I was predicting was actually not just correct. Like, I thought this would be a reveal like, I don't know, partway through, maybe like 25% of the way through. I thought this might be like one of like the, not like the inciting action or something, but like part of like the drama of like this book. It turns out it wasn't that. It was in fact the very last line of this book. So the thing that I could see really clearly from like the very first chapter, very obviously, is not even going to be a plot point until book 2. On that note as well, I can't remember if I've said, or I probably did, but I just didn't think about it, that this is the first book in a series, and I am trying to complete series this year and not to start series. And like, there are plenty of series that I've like maybe like thought about picking up that I've avoided because I don't want to add any more series to my series tracker right now. I just kind of completely forgot about that during this vlog. But to save myself and spoilers for like my next like series check-in type video, I have decided that on the basis of this first book, I'm just going to straight up DNF this series. This book is fine for the purposes of this vlog, but I do not intend to carry on with it. I don't have any desire to figure out what's going to happen, because like from chapter 1 I knew the last line of the book, which is going to make like all the plot of book 2. I don't care. My intrigue is a 0. Yeah, I will not be continuing with this series. I'm just going to mark it up as a DNF. I would never have picked it up if it were not like just an easy audiobook like for this vlog, so I don't feel too bad about it. In terms of like the book itself, like I said, she's very YA. This is like, because it's like your magical underdog type main character girly, and like with her best friend and her mentor and like her love interest, except there's 3 of them, so times all of that by 3. And I can't remember if I mentioned before, but basically my thought is that there are way too many characters in this book, especially for the audiobook. You have like the main girl and her love interest, because like there has to be one, and sometimes he has like a friend or a companion and family and whatever, but she's got her own like guardian mentor type person, and sometimes there's more than one of those, and she'll have a friend, and sometimes there's more than one of those, and then there's 3 lots of these people, and I just don't care. My camera died at the perfect time. Basically, I feel like all the characters are just, they're kind of bland. I think part of it is because 1, it's a YA novel, but 2, you've got like 3 times the amount of characters that you would normally have in a regular YA novel, so none of them really get that much page time, and they are all pretty bland. I don't know, the queens kind of have like some slightly different powers and like some very slight differences in personality traits, but for the most part they're all kind of the same. The guardian-y type, mentor-y type people are all kind of the same. I could not tell you anything about any of the love interests. They're all so boring and so basic, and I do not know which one is which. And I feel like listening to this specific book as an audiobook was probably a really bad choice because it's not a full cast, it's just like the one narrator, and I definitely remember complaining about the narrator and like the way that she would pronounce things, and I'm sure there was like something else that she was pronouncing. Oh, that was it. It was, I can't remember if I went on a rant about the way that she pronounces buoyed, like to be buoyed up, from the word buoyancy. Because she's American, apparently she pronounces it buoyed, which I must therefore insist, if you pronounce it buoyed, you then have to pronounce it buoyancy and buoyant. No one is saying buoyancy, it's buoyant, it's buoyed. It's not buoyed. Oh my god. Anyway, yeah, I kind of really did hate this narrator specifically. She was really bad. I never got over Arsinoe. Like, I looked it up again, and in a French dialect they might pronounce it Arsino, something like that. I don't have a French accent, and I'm like, okay, I could make peace with like Arsino. I can kind of see how you might like a dialect might affect that change, but Arsinoe, I tell you, it did annoy me. Yeah, I can't get over that one. That's so abysmal, so bad. 0 out of 10. I think that's now ruined the name Arsinoe for me permanently. But back onto the narrator, the other thing she is not good at is voices. They just completely blend together. Like, it's really hard to tell the difference between like the three girls all kind of have kind of the same voice, and like all their female friends have like kind of the same voice, and like obviously there's like the three older women who are kind of like, I don't know, you call them like advisors, mentors, they've got like a name that I don't recall. They just have like the sort of older woman type voice, you know. And the men, oh, every single time this narrator was trying to put on like the voice of like what is supposed to be like an attractive teenage boy, absolutely not. It was abysmal. It sounded so bad. It kind of sounds like there's like a cartoon character, and it's not like a Winnie the Pooh or like a Barney the dinosaur type voice, but it's like, it's along those lines. That's what she sounds like, and these girls are like swooning for these men, and I'm sat there thinking he sounds like he's in one of these like 6-foot bear mascot costumes because of the way she puts on his voice. It's so bad. No. No. I mean, the thing is, a book like this probably should have been a full cast because there's so many people, but also it does not deserve a full cast. That's where I'm at with this book. So yeah, I'm kind of glad to have finished it. I'm probably going to give this like, I liked the kind of concept, I guess. I just didn't really care for any of it, and like the plot is kind of stupid, and I feel like every action any character takes, I'm like, okay, but where is this going? Because you're split between these like 3 different viewpoints that it's like you never really get anywhere. So it just seems like, so people are doing things but like nothing's going anywhere because each story is moving at such a slow pace because you've got to get through 3 of them, so it drags, and the writing's not very good. I mean, part of that could have been like the narrator just not doing it justice, but I don't think it was great to begin with. So I'm probably going to give this like a 2 point something, maybe like a 2.5, 2.75-ish. It wasn't awful. I just, even for a YA, I don't even feel like it scrapes the 3 stars for me. It was just really bland. So yeah, I have washed myself clean of this audiobook, and it's kind of late, so I have no idea what the next thing I'm going to start is, but I'm going to tell you now, it's not going to be a fantasy, which hurts to say. So I don't know what I'm going to pick. Maybe I'm going to look for something with like better voice acting and that's hopefully less predictable. Okay, I'm going to head off to bed, and I will see you in the morning. Hello, it is Wednesday, my dudes. It is also my last day of work this week. So come tomorrow, I won't have to be like listening to audiobooks in between like work meetings and things. So this morning I started Sleeping Giants by Sylvain Nouvelle. This is another one where I've heard that the audiobook is like the way that you want to go. I've heard quite a few reviews for this book, and everyone said that it had like a really good full cast and like sound effects and things, so that is why I went for it. And it definitely makes a change after listening to 3 Dark Crowns, which it's honestly just like worlds different. Because I am still doing like other things while listening, there are a few voices that I kind of like forget who's who, but for the most part I think I've kind of got it. If you haven't heard of this one before, it's basically, there's like a little girl out in like the woods or whatever, and she falls like down a hole and lands in like this giant like metal palm, like this metal hand, and they dig it out, and it's like this big giant robotic looking hand. That tends to be like the amount that most people say in their wrap-ups. Oh my god, my voice is going. Yeah, people don't tend to say more than that. I feel like even though I'm only a little way into the audiobook, I feel like I know more than that already, but I don't know if there's a reason why they don't really say more, so I'm also not going to say more. But yeah, it's good so far. It's a sci-fi, and once again, I'm pretty sure this is a series, but I feel like this is really short and is potentially one of the series that I would consider continuing. Although, because like I don't know how good these are in print, so I might have to try the next one in print because I doubt I'm going to be doing like another audiobook type vlog. So yeah, my plan for today is pretty much to just get through work like as much as I can, and then I have like the whole rest of the week and the weekend free just to do reading. I'm gonna go because this is turning out to be a long break, but I will check in, I guess, either at lunch or when I finish work. Hey, so I think I just start to look worse every time you see me. So check in, I am now done with work. I have the next 2 days off of work. It does mean that ultimately I'll have like more time for it though, because especially today, like with work, I just did not really have much time. I'm only like, I don't even know if I'm at a full hour into Sleeping Giants. It's good so far. I also think like doing it while I'm working has not been the best today, so I'm probably glad actually that I've only got like an hour in, because I feel like I want to pay attention to it more. So I feel like I need to do a task that doesn't involve me thinking. I'm probably going to want to be doing something like just doodling or something. I don't really know. I don't feel like drawing, which is the issue. I am laid down, by the way, in case you were wondering about the angle. Post work day, so I'm tired, but it's only just gone like 5 p.m, so I'll be sticking things out a little bit later today. But yeah, so far it's good. The full cast is really helping. It's definitely helping me to actually like properly differentiate between the characters, which was slightly difficult with Three Dark Crowns. Like, this is so much better if you've got like a larger cast of characters, and I really like the idea that it sounds like you're listening to like these audio logs, like these audio files. I just like audiobooks where you listening to it as an audio file like makes sense in the context of like the fiction. I can't say too much because like I think I'm literally like 55 minutes in or something. I am pretty tired, but I feel like I've probably got like a long evening ahead of me, so what I might do is like at some point I'm going to like cook and eat, and I might try and like I'm gonna have to like try and log in from my phone because I've been doing everything from my laptop so far. Anyway, so far things are going well. I cannot believe I'm on like book 4. Is this really the 4th one? It definitely does feel like I'm speedrunning everything. Hello, late night check-in. So I have finished Sleeping Giants, and unlike the other 2 series that I like accidentally started, this one I think I will continue. I can't really think of anything else to say about like the book or like specifically the audiobook that I didn't already say like in an earlier clip and that wouldn't include spoilers, other than to say like I'm intrigued at like how it ended and like where it might go, and they're really short, and I feel like for that reason I'm probably going to at least attempt to continue on with this series. And even though my eye bags are looking atrocious right now, I'm not actually horrifically tired, and because I don't have work in the morning, I feel like I'm going to just throw caution to the wind and stay up kind of late tonight, and I'm going to start a new audiobook. So before coming on to make this update, I did have a little look, and one of the audiobooks that I kept seeing like pop up on lists of like, if you're going to listen to an audiobook, like here are some of the best ones to try, and that was Sadie. I've heard this one talked about a lot, so I figure now is the time to try it. So what I'm probably going to do is, there's not too much really that I want to be doing like before I go to sleep, so I'm gonna put this on and probably just like listen to it while I like wind down, scroll on my phone, that sort of thing, and then I'm gonna go to bed, and I'll see how much I can get listened to tonight, and then that'll hopefully put me in a nice place for continuing that tomorrow morning. Good morning, it is Thursday the 16th. I'm actually awake at kind of a reasonable time, so at some point today I will be doing things that don't allow me to listen to audiobooks, which is not ideal for this vlog. However, I am maybe about an hour into Sadie, and I think I'm enjoying it so far. I do listen to true crime podcasts. I listen to the Morbid podcast, so like this kind of feels like a little bit familiar to me. That said, because I'm going to film today, I am going to have to do like some makeup, and instead of listening to a a true crime podcast like I sort of normally would, I am going to switch that out for my audiobook, which I don't think is going to feel too different. So my plan for today is to listen to as much as I can while I get ready, film hopefully like as quickly as I can. I'm then going to have to edit that video so that it's ready for tomorrow, which means that I can't listen to my audiobook while I do that, but what I can do is I can listen to it while I make the thumbnail. And then I was drawing more steady ship art last night, so I can in fact continue that artwork afterwards, after the video is ready, and I can listen to it more then. So I'm gonna get working on my face. I'm gonna listen to Sadie while I do that, and then next time I check in I should hopefully be done for the day. Okay, so I think I'm about like 3-ish hours into Sadie, and I'm pretty sure that it's listed as YA, but so far it's been a bit darker than I expected, in like a good way. I appreciate that it's not like sugarcoating things. I think that I prefer Sadie's sections as opposed to like the podcast. I am interested to see like how they join up eventually. So far I think it's another good choice for an audiobook. Again, I wouldn't normally have gone with like a YA, but I had heard like really good things about this one, like, so I'm kind of glad that I went with it, and so far it's pretty good. I got this new like face cream recently and it smells so good. So yeah, the only thing is, because I've spent today filming, I feel like I am kind of behind where I wanted to be. I think that Sadie is one of the shorter audiobooks. I think it's like either 8 hours or like 8.5 hours. It should absolutely be the kind of thing that I can just like read in a day. And I had kind of been hoping that I would be able to like read maybe like a second book today, or like at least like get a good way through a second book today. But given the time, I definitely want to get through this today, and I would really like to at least start something else. So we'll see how that goes. Hello! I don't know why I look so weird. Update wise though, I actually finished Sadie, and I think I really liked it. I think I was saying the things that I liked is that it goes a lot darker than I expected it to, and I had a feeling about the way that it would end, but I don't really want to say like any spoilers about the ending, but like I feel like the ending made sense and was kind of like, it fits with like the way I could see the story going. And I do think like the voice cast in this was pretty good. It made a really big difference from listening to like the one annoying narrator in Three Dark Crowns. So yeah, this was one of the ones where when I first knew that I was like gonna attempt like this little challenge, Sadie is one of the audiobooks where it's kind of like Daisy Jones and the Six, where this is one where I have heard people talk specifically about the audiobook, and people have said if you're gonna like read this book, listen to the audiobook. And like I kept that in my little brain, and I do think they're right. Obviously I can't really say like how it reads in print, but it was definitely enjoyable enough as an audiobook. I'd probably give this like at least like a 3 stars, maybe like a 3 point something. That might seem low, but like I do rate everything based on like personal enjoyment, and I feel like in order to get like a higher sort of like rating from me, I either need to like really be invested in, like really into like the story, but that really only tends to happen when like a series or something, or if the writing is phenomenal, or if I like really deeply care about the characters. Something in there has to like be great to like elevate it, at least like for me anyway, in the way that I rate things. So I think that makes this my 5th audiobook so far this week. Yeah, I'm glad my library had this one. They never have anything, especially in print, but like at least they had this. So despite me being like basically ready for bed and wanting to like redo my skincare, it's not actually that late, and I reckon I could get another audiobook done possibly tonight, like if I find something short. I say if. I have found something, and like I'm a bit dubious, but I figure I'm already trying all sorts of weird stuff like between this vlog and the last one, so it might as well be now. The next audiobook I'm going to start, I almost don't want to say it, but like I've made up my mind. It's After Dark by Haruki Murakami. Now I have not the best relationship with Haruki Murakami. Basically a couple of years ago, I think maybe like 2019, I think, I read one of his earlier works, Sputnik's Sweetheart. This man has never met a woman. No, I'm so sorry. No, even with like the cultural differences, absolutely not. Sometimes the way that certain men write about women, you can tell that they do not consider women to be like even the same like creatures as men, but like in a bad way. Like men are people and women are like this other thing. Like it gives me so much that vibes. I feel like Haruki Murakami writes books with no plot, and he just talks about like random crap and then is like, yeah, that's about good. And then even before that, I did this stupid video really early in booktube, and like I did like a video where I like went through and like narrated even some of like there's this award called like the Worst Sex in Fiction Awards. Would you believe it? Murakami's work featured on there, and like I didn't even know at the time. I think in that video I told him to fight me round the back of Tesco, which I feel like sums up my thoughts. Yeah, I have mixed feelings, but at the same time, even before I'd read like these two things, a lot of Murakami's work, I feel like they have really interesting premises, and they were things. I'm trying to think of like I think Kafka on the Shore was one, and it's like something Sheep Chase or something like that. I can't remember what the other one's called. They sounded really interesting, and I'd heard really good things about them, and I really wanted to read them. And then it turns out I'm not sure I can trust the opinions of people who are recommending those books. This audiobook is, how long is this? It's only like 6-ish hours long. That's not very long at all. So that's like, I can have this done in less than 4 hours. I think I'm going to start my evening by putting on this face mask, listening to After Dark, and I'm going to spend like the next few hours drawing on my like massive tablet. And I reckon I can switch my brain off for like 3-4 hours and just draw and let my skin not feel like so gross and itchy. And then I will hopefully have finished another audiobook before bed. So I'm gonna get this set up and get comfy. Okay, so it's very late, so I want to make this quite quick. It has actually gone past midnight, so technically this is my first book of Friday. But I managed to finish After Dark. Again, I think I was expecting it to be a bit different, like from the way that the like synopsis sounded. But yeah, it was just a bit mundane. It was just like dull, I guess. I wasn't thrilled by it, but I might potentially give like maybe one of his like more famous works another chance at some point. Characters meh, not much plot. I didn't like the writing, but again, it's a translation, and I try not to judge translated works too harshly, because not only does it depend on how well one language translates into another language, and like the limitations of each of those languages, but also like the skill of the translator. I'm not going to judge it for that. I'm going to yawn though. I definitely have to go. Yeah, I might give this like a 2 point something. I would say the best time to listen to this is if you are stuck on like a 3 or a 4 hour train journey and you have limited options. What an endorsement. Okay, I have to go. I must sleep. And then I will start a new audiobook in the morning. And this will be audiobook number... Oh, I'm too tired to count. But there'll be a new one. Good morning and welcome to Friday? Is it Friday? And I actually started my next audiobook already. So this morning I started listening to The Silent Patient. I don't remember who by. It's not the kind of thing I would normally pick up, but it was another one that had like a proper cast. And I seem to be doing better with the audiobooks that have like an actual cast as opposed to just like one person. Then I think this book is pretty well known. I've definitely heard a few people talk about it, even though like I think this was like a popular book when it came out. General premise is there is a woman who's in like this like insane asylum type place, and she's there for murdering her husband, and she like hasn't spoken since the crime, and there's this doctor who's like the perspective that you're getting, and he's trying to like make her talk and like find out what happened. So there is actually like a little project that I want to start today, and I'm hoping that'll keep me busy while I listen to the next book. Okay, I think that's everything I can update on at the moment, so I will check in later. excuse the whole like I've rubbed all my makeup off look, but I have an update. I actually have two updates. The first one, because I cannot contain myself. I successfully finished my first book binding, and I think it turned out really well. You cannot see just how like I promise this is like a really shiny foil. If I turn my lights off, I think you can kind of see it, but I think it came out really well. So yeah, this is my first little book binding, and it pretty much came out exactly how I wanted it to. There's definitely some stuff that I know for next time, but I am still really pleased with how this came out, especially the font. I even put like a ribbon in it, and it's got like end papers, so it's like a proper little book. I kind of think it looks a little bit like a Bible now that I'm seeing it in the viewfinder, but like I don't totally mind that look actually. I kind of dig that. So yeah, spoilers, because I'm probably gonna like definitely do like a whole future video on like my little book binding process experience thing maybe, but I'm super pleased with how this came out, and I definitely want to do this again. I just kind of wanted to show it off, and I'm just really glad that I don't have that god awful green ass cover. So that is that. That's my little patting myself on the back out of the way. So that aside, update number 2 is I actually finished listening to The Silent Patient while I was like still doing all like my book binding stuff, and I pretty much just had like the last like 20-ish minutes to listen to like once I'd finished. So I feel like I flew through this. I think having something like really properly like tactile and like completely absorbing to do while I listened was actually really good for the experience. It's like if I'm just sat drawing like at my tablet or something, what I tend to do when I actually draw is I'll draw a little bit and then I'll go do something else, and then I'll come back and draw, and then I'll go do something else. And I feel like I needed something that was just like a consuming activity where I could just like focus and like be in my ADHD headspace, but also like listen and enjoy the book. But I actually think that having a task to focus on and having this as an audiobook like to do while I'm doing another task actually probably enhanced my enjoyment of this. One of my issues when it comes to like mystery, thriller, crime type novel things is that I'm usually really good at like figuring out what's going on. It doesn't matter if it's like a sci-fi or a fantasy or like a proper like actual thriller. I just tend to usually guess the ending. Case in point, when I read Three Dark Crowns and the first chapter I knew what the last line of the book would be. We're kind of in like a different ballpark here, but you get the drift. And I think that is because I always read the physical book, so I have time to just like pause on the page or like reread a line if I get suspicious, you know? And because I'm only reading like a certain number of pages a day, it gives me like time in between like to maybe think about the book that I'm reading, or I don't know. I feel like when you read it as a physical book and you're like going through it slower and your full attention is like completely on the book, you're obviously going to like pick up on things more because you've got more time to think and you're more focused. However, I think that because I was listening to this while doing another task, so I was able to like listen to every word that was being said, but I was also focused on something else, so I had like a divided attention, and I honestly wasn't like really trying to work out the mystery because I was trying to work out how to bind a book. So I was just kind of like along for the ride, and I feel like that really enhanced my enjoyment of it, the fact that I didn't even realise that I was or wasn't trying to like think ahead to how I thought things might end. I was literally just listening to whatever I was being told at that time, and I wasn't trying to guess ahead, which is not like me at all, because like I like trying to guess ahead, and I guess I just forgot to because I was busy binding a book. Because of that, it meant that like I hadn't thought about the end at all, so like when you get to the end, I was kind of like, oh, this is how people feel when they read these kind of books and they get to the end and like they haven't, like you don't know what it's going to be. And I'm like, oh, this is what it feels like. This is kind of nice. Obviously every twist and turn for me was a twist and turn, and it meant that I enjoyed it more, because like that's what they're supposed to do. They're there to like enhance your enjoyment, and I really did enjoy that. So I think this book almost scraped like a 4 stars for me. I'm probably leaning more towards like maybe like a 3.75, because I don't quite feel like it was like full, like I'm not emotionally invested or attached to the book, but I did find it very enjoyable. Like it was super binge worthy. I'm really surprised because I was not expecting that from, especially having just done like my stupid like reading out of my comfort zone type thing. I feel like if I'd picked a book like this for that challenge, that probably would have gone like way better. Honestly, a surprise hit. I really enjoyed this one. Honestly, my suggestion for if you haven't read this and you do listen to it on audiobook, but do something else at the same time. It was just like a pocket of entertainment for me. It was a pocket where I wasn't bored at any point because I had like 2 tasks going on, which again I feel like is my ADHD brain being like, I need at least 2 tasks. So I'm calling this one a win. This has kept me in like a really, really good mood. I feel like I was kind of starting to flag listening to After Dark yesterday. I feel rejuvenated having like, one, gotten through this so fast. I thought this would take me all day, and I feel like I've got so much of my day back, but I've also been really productive today. So I'm in a really good like headspace. I'm feeling really good about like my weekend, and I have no idea what I'm doing for the rest of the evening, but I'm probably going to start my next audiobook. So I feel like I should just like pick another book to bind for absolutely no reason other than it will give me something to do while I listen to an audiobook. I'm hoping that whatever I pick, I will keep this like reading high going. Yeah, I only have 2 more days to get through, which means that I want to get through at least 2 more audiobooks. I feel like I'm running out of shorter ones that I've marked down, but I might take like another look through. We will see. I might try and find something that has vampires, because I feel like I'm flagging on like my commitment to reading vampire books this month, and I guess I will let you know the next time I see you. Hello, it is Saturday and time for an update. And this one is a lying down update because I was not so well last night. So I'm feeling very bleh and tired today, but I have started The Queen's Rising. And let me tell you, this audiobook, it is YA-ing. It's so YA. I can't tell how it's measuring up to Three Dark Crowns at the moment. I feel like in Three Dark Crowns, maybe like the concept or the setting was like slightly more interesting, although I feel like the writing in this one maybe is better. So far the characters are also really, really bland. I'm honestly not very far in, but yeah, I might be doing like limited other activities today that don't involve like lying in bed, which, to be honest, not so bad. So I'm not sure how many check-ins I'm gonna get today, but honestly I'm not really sure what I would have to say about this audiobook, but it's fine, it's fine. My brain's not working so well today. Okay, I have no more thoughts to say from my pillow, so I'm gonna go. Hello, update. I swear this looks exactly like the same as before. Basically, you may have seen I spent a good part of today watching The Lord of the Rings. Honestly, I always say that The Lord of the Rings is like one of my favourite films ever, and the film that I always say is my favourite film, I still really like it. I can't explain why, but I just do. But I'm thinking after last night that I might have to bump up the Lord of the Rings trilogy to like my favourite film/films of all time. I'm just sort of feeling that way. 3.5 hours of Lord of the Rings and pizza. I feel like that did a lot to put me into like a better mood. And I did also finish The Queen's Rising, which was fine, but it really is just very YA. I feel like it was easier to listen to because there weren't quite as many like moving parts as Three Dark Crowns, which just had honestly for me that book just had like too many characters. And I did also realise that this is again another start to another series, so I'm gonna have to figure out what I'm doing with that on my like series tracker spreadsheet thing. Yeah, my only thing was that there are 2 things about this audiobook. And I feel like they're kind of the same point actually. What I'm going to say, it is technically a spoiler, but it isn't. What I'm going to say basically reveals who the love interest at the end of the first book is, but like, it's YA, and you can tell immediately. You just know who it is the whole time, so I don't think that's a spoiler. The book might be pretending for like a couple chapters at the beginning that it's like, oh yeah, they're definitely not together. They are together. They are. It's not a spoiler, so I'm going to say it. Basically, this book does feature a student-teacher age gap romance, which I was not expecting. I'm pretty sure that Brianna, the main character, is like 17 at the start. I think she has her 18th birthday like during the course of the book. And I think her teacher, who I'm pretty sure his name is Cartier, like the bracelet. And I know it's like a French-inspired fantasy world. I know that it is just a name, but like this man could have been called Gucci. I feel like I need to do that. I feel like I need to have a fantasy character called Gucci. Gucci the Goblin. I'm going so off track. Anyway, basically, this Cartier bracelet ass man, I think he's like in his like late 20s. He must be like 27, 28. I think he's like 10 years older than her. I will say, I am personally a girly who appreciates an older man. So like I'm not necessarily like immediately opposed to like age gap romances, especially like in fantasy, but the thing is, one, this book is aimed at young girls. I'm assuming younger than the main character, and also he was her teacher, and it wasn't portrayed as like, the only time it was ever considered taboo is because of the specific way that like these masters of their arts take their students, and it's nothing to do, like, the tabooness isn't that he's her teacher, it's that there are certain practices that happen within this fantasy world between student and teacher, like they're not allowed to like touch at any point, for example. The tabooness was like through the specific rituals of this fantasy world, and not for the fact that this man met her when she was like, I think like 10 years old. Is she like 10? He's been teaching her specifically for 3 full years and she's 17. I just feel like it's weird when, like, I don't mind like a taboo romance or like a dark romance or an age gap romance. I don't mind those things if they're like done in a specific way, but I feel like, one, this book is targeted to like children, like young teenagers, who are people that like interact with teachers on a daily basis, so like this is not setting like a good precedent. But the only other thing, and like this is why I know about this age gap, because it wasn't totally explicit in the book, like, you know that he's her teacher and it's older, but like it's not, I can't remember if it's stated exactly how much, like I had to Google this. The first time he was talking, and obviously I'm listening to this on audiobook, the narrator, the voice that she gives, I think she's just trying to give him like a deep, proper man's voice sort of thing. It came out to me as like senile old man. The first time she ever spoke, I was like, who is this senile old man? It was like a full-on chapter there where I was picturing like some properly like wizened old man, and then it kind of went on and I'm like, wait a minute, is this the same character as like from the previous chapter who was described as like being like handsome? It's not. That's just how the narrator's voice sounds. She's really giving it her like full-on old man impression for this like 28-year-old guy. But yeah, that's how I figured out. I mean, that would have been taboo. Yeah, I don't really know what to rate any of these, to be honest. I feel like at best they're scraping like a 3 stars from me. And yeah, to be honest, it is very simplistic. Like some of the twists and things, it's like you're kind of told outright, and I guess it's only a twist if you just don't remember like certain names and facts that are just said, like they're said like offhand towards the beginning, but like if you read them, then surely you would know them. And I guess the author was just banking on like her readers just immediately forgetting any information, just like in one ear out the other. Don't think I'm going to start anything else tonight because I am very tired, you can probably tell. I think I do know what I'm going to start tomorrow, but I'm going to start it tomorrow, and I have a really good reason why I'm not going to start it tonight, apart from the fact that I'm really, really tired. I'm going to be reading something like very appropriate, very like almost like I've themed my reading day. You'll see what I mean, and I'm very excited for that. So I'm really, really, really looking forward to tomorrow when I'm like rested and don't feel like crap. Tomorrow will be like I think like my 9th audiobook, which, like, if I knew it was this easy to read like 9 books in a week before. I mean, there are downsides. There are definitely downsides. Anyway, I need to go and rest up for tomorrow. I have a feeling tomorrow is going to be my favourite day of this vlog.
Right over the town is the ruin of Whitby Abbey. It is a most noble ruin, of immense size, and full of beautiful and romantic bits. There is a legend that a white lady is seen in one of the windows.
Pitched herself on that accumulation of sand and gravel into the southeast corner of the pier jutting under the east cliff, known locally as Tate Hill Pier.
There is another church, the parish one, round which is a big graveyard, all full of tombstones. This is, to my mind, the nicest spot in Whitby.
Waves beat madly on the level sands and rushed up the shelving cliffs. Others broke over the piers and with their spume swept the lanthorns of the lighthouses which rise from the end of either pier of Whitby Harbour. The approach of sunset was so very beautiful before the sun dipped below the black mass of Kettleness, standing boldly athwart the western sky. Its downward way was marked by myriad clouds of every sunset colour and all the tints of gold, with here and there masses not large but of seemingly absolute blackness in all sorts of shapes, as well outlined as colossal silhouettes.
Hello, so I am back from Whitby. So yeah, today I took a trip to Whitby. I went with my parents. Whitby is really, really close to us and it's somewhere that we like to go like multiple times a year, like probably like 5 to 10 times every year. And so obviously I thought it would be very appropriate indeed, if I were to listen to Dracula while I was in Whitby. And I did do that and I timed it perfectly. I started listening to it. Well, here's the thing. Unfortunately, like the night before, I actually didn't really get to sleep very well. I was ill again, which is great, thank you. Going to sleep past like 4 in the morning when I'm getting up to like leave the house early in the morning, not my favourite. So once again, I feel like you can't even see it, but oh no, you kind of can. I'm pretty tired. And because I couldn't really sleep last night, I decided, screw it, I'm gonna listen to like the first part of the Dracula audiobook. So that got me through a few, we'll just say pretty naff hours in the early morning, but for the most part I was listening to it on the drive up to Whitby. And honestly it was just really fantastic because I managed to time it perfectly so that all the parts where Mina and Lucy are in Whitby and there's like so much talk about Whitby, I was also in Whitby. So I could listen to them talking, and like they were talking about like the chapel and like the pier. I was paying attention a lot to when they were talking about like the ship Demeter where it runs aground and Tate Hill Pier. So we ended up walking down Tate Hill Pier and it was really, really great. When we got there it was like super sunny, but after a little while it didn't actually rain. It spat just a tiny bit, but there must have been a storm out to sea somewhere because the waves were massive. The waves were, well, not massive, but like for Whitby they were pretty big, and the sky was all like grey and overcast. So it was really, really nice and atmospheric. It's like my perfect kind of weather if it had just been like a tad less windy, because you can probably tell like I do not do the sun. So yeah, it was really, really good, except for the fact that because I'm ill, I couldn't actually eat anything in Whitby, and we went to like this little old pie shop with like all this like really ancient stuff in it. It's such like a cute little shop. It's called the Humble Pie Shop, and if you ever go to Whitby, please go to the pie shop. They make lovely pie. Not that I can eat any, because I can't actually keep food down at the moment. So I am feeling like I'm on my way to a vampire, like, yeah, pale skin, can't go out in the sun, have fangs, can't eat human food. It's definitely feeling like I'm becoming a vampire, so perfect time to listen to Dracula. I'm not all the way through it yet. I do have some to go still. Because I started listening to, there was one that I could find, like, it was just online, like, for free, and it sounds old. It's just got, like, one guy narrating it, but then I'm thinking, like, this is really old, but then it just wasn't doing it for me, so I did Cave, and I have got, like a trial subscription thing for Audible, because I really wanted to listen to the Audible version, because it's got Tim Curry in it, and I was like, so that is the version that I've been listening to, because it has a full cast, and it's a really good full cast, so I'm really enjoying that. And then because I was feeling like kind of like bad for myself because like I'd had like no sleep and I felt like crap and I couldn't eat, so I was in a very like treat yourself kind of mood. You might have seen I went into a few bookshops, and the first two books that I saw were these, and these look so cute together. These are like, I love this colour scheme, it's so cute. But I got a dictionary of Tolkien and an atlas of Tolkien, and I got them because they were only £3.99 each. Like, yes, these are like £10–11 online, and I've had my eye on this set for like a while, and I do kind of want to get them all. I am like, again, I watched Lord of the Rings yesterday and I'm in like a really, really Lord of the Rings type mood. And I do really want to reread the Lord of the Rings again at some point, because it's been like 10 plus years since I last read them. They were cute and I wanted them, and now they are souvenirs and they are mine. So sneak peek, expect to see these in, not my next book haul because I've actually already filmed that, even though it'll probably go out after this vlog, but sometime in March. And then, you know, because I can't be stopped and like that wasn't enough, every single time I go to Whitby I see this one specific like kind of book. There's this one company and they publish a bunch of books that all have the same like aesthetic, and I love them every time I see them, and it's been like years and I've never bought one. So I got one and like, please look at it. Gothic fantasy, weird horror short stories, and the publisher is Flame Tree Publishing, so you can find these online, but they're always like 20 quid. I think they RRP for like 30 quid or 20 quid or something, but these are like £12 in Whitby. I picked this one specifically because it's like my favourite colour. I'm pretty sure what they do is they take like works that are in like the public domain, so like a lot of older stuff, and they just bind it up into like really nice packaging. And I wanted to check the formatting before buying it like online, but there is another one that I want, and it's like a binder of like gothic Christmas tales and like gothic like ghostly like Christmas stories, and I was like, that is something I would like to get for next Christmas. I may or may not be starting a collection. Anyway, this update is getting a teensy tiny bit rambly, so I'm gonna go because I do still have to finish Dracula, and this is my longest audiobook. This is like 15.5 hours, and obviously because I've been like out and like walking through Whitby, I did have the audiobook playing for like much of the time when I was walking, but there were points in time when I was like having conversations and things, so I'm going to go and like try and finish the audiobook. Oh, and I should have mentioned, I'm also wearing my vampire t-shirt, which like you can barely see it because like it's so horribly faded right now. These are actually my characters. I made this shirt, but like this is a guy throwing up. And I suspect many of you who might know vampires will know where this quotation is from. If you do know where that quote is from, leave it in the comments. Bonus points from me. What I'm trying to say is, everything about me today is vampires, so I'm gonna go continue listening to this audiobook, and I will check in either when I'm finished, or if that turns out to be too late at night, then in the morning. Oh, isn't this just a fantastic update? Does this look any better? Honestly, not really. You can probably tell I am tired as all heck, but that is not what's important. What is important is that I moved this piece of hair, first of all. The thing that's actually important is I finished Dracula. Oh my god, I finished my final audiobook. This one, honestly, the best. Not only, in my opinion, but I think probably the best audiobook, just because it was like a really good cast. Like, I'm sorry, if you've got Tim Curry in your audiobook, like, is there any competition? Is there any competition? No, there is not. Do I regret making an Audible account for this? I'll figure that out when I try and like see how easy it is to like cancel a membership. We'll see how that goes. I think it's the third time I've read Dracula. It was nice to have a refresher, and I think it was really nice to experience it in like a different way. It honestly sounded like I was listening to just like a radio play version of Dracula, which was pretty good. The casting was fantastic. There are some attempts at some very strong Yorkshire accents in this audiobook. My immediate like sort of gut reaction is to give this like a high 4 stars, like a 4.5, 4 points. It's not a 5 stars because I'm not emotionally invested in like any of the characters really. I think the only thing sort of like dragging it down is that it is very of its time, and there is just a little bit too much sexism. Like, and I know it still portrays like its female characters, I guess. I want to say good for the time. Mina is like, she is very capable. She's quite an active character, and she's smart and she's skilled, and but the book does also say it is kind of like in a not like other girls kind of way. I can't remember what the exact quotes were, but there were a few times when I was thinking like, oh, I wish that would have been phrased differently. So I'm probably gonna like knock it down a little bit, because again I rate everything based on personal enjoyment, so I'm probably gonna give it like a 4.25. I was gonna say it would be nice like if maybe like next time I go to Whitby I could be listening to it again, but I guarantee that the next time I go I will not have access to this audiobook, so that's kind of sad, but like, it is what it is. Yeah, the other thing I wanted to say as well is that I still feel like this book really holds up as like a horror book even now. Just like the descriptions, like the eeriness, just like the tension that you would feel, especially in like the later moments as the characters are like waiting for Dracula or like trying to track him down. There were just certain points where it's like just the descriptions either of them being like in wait and like not knowing like what's going to happen when, or the actual descriptions of like Dracula himself, or like at certain points when it's like you know where he is, like you know that he's like at the window and preying on Lucy. It's just kind of like, I still think that a lot of those sections hold up really well. They are very atmospheric, they are eerie and creepy, and it's good horror. It's like, it's not very in your face, and it's not like, because I think we're very desensitized to it, I don't think anyone nowadays would find it like genuinely scary, but it does still feel very atmospheric. I think it was really nice to finish the vlog off with this one because, like, I know it is a reread, but I've definitely read more than 7 books in 7 days, which is like insane. Again, this is not sustainable because I can only do this because like I've never had like accounts on audiobook things before, and I have access to 2 libraries, and like if I'm ever trying to do this again, it's like even if I'm just down to like those 2 libraries, it depends on like things being on hold, and like I've already read like a bunch of what I would probably want to read from their selection anyway, so I don't think I could ever really do this again. I think what I'm going to need to do, because I am exhausted, is, and like I'm still not really well, which is like fantastic, thank you. So I think what I'm going to need to do is I'm probably going to wrap this up in like a different section when I am rested, and when I can like organize my thoughts, like formulate some sort of like, I don't know, like I don't have access to like my single brain cell right now, so I want to say tomorrow, but like I'm at work tomorrow, so who knows when I'm going to film the outro. I will go, but then I will leave you with my final thoughts, and yeah, that'll be the last clip. So that is it for my week of reading nothing but audiobooks. I think this week went really well. I think I read 9? Did I read 9 audiobooks? 9 books in a week might be a personal best. That said, like, quality-wise, definitely not my best reading week. There were some good books in here, and I guess I have now also started a new series, because I probably will continue with the Themis Files. And Dracula was a hit, but that was a reread also. I feel like it was a mixed bag in terms of how much I actually enjoyed the books, and I know that is true of like any book you pick up, but I feel like audiobooks are not the best medium for listening to my personal favourite genre. I like a really sort of like complex, verbose, wordy sort of book. I know, complex plot threads and storylines and conspiracies, and I just don't think that the best way to enjoy like a sort of potentially confusing adult high fantasy is through an audiobook. I feel like I would want to sort of chew on it a bit more. So I did kind of have to avoid books that I probably would have liked, but just not in this medium. So I think I did end up reading pretty widely overall. We had some adults, some YA, some like, I guess YA fantasy, but sci-fi, thrillers, contemporaries, like there was a lot. But yeah, as a quick rundown of the week, we had Daisy Jones and the Six, which I'd probably give that a thumbs up. That was pretty good, had a full cast. Then The Martian by Andy Weir, again, I liked this one. It had a really limited scope of characters, so I feel like that worked for just like the singular narrator. It was a good story, it was fine. Then Three Dark Crowns by Kendora Blake. Absolute no. This was like the most YA of YA. I kind of like the premise, but the execution, oh, it was bad. How am I supposed to know from page 1 what the last line of your book is going to be? No. Then Sleeping Giants by Sylvain Neuvel. Again, I thought this was really good. I thought the full cast really helped. And I will continue with this series if my library has the other audiobooks. Then we had Sadie, which again I thought was pretty good to listen to. And I think like the common theme is that when there's like a proper cast, I feel like my rating goes up. Then we had After Dark by Haruki Murakami, which I just thought was just kind of incredibly boring, and I'm sure it's to someone's taste, but personally I just can't really see why it exists. It's just incredibly dull. So yeah, not thrilled by this one. But I was pretty pleasantly surprised by The Silent Patient. This has 2 different narrators, so not a full cast, but again I feel like that really helped. The Queen's Rising, look, I'm not going to continue this series. Again, it was incredibly YA. I'm sure this might have been like popular at some point, but like I don't even hear people on BookTube talk about this book. It's incredibly YA, but like not even one of the enduring YA fantasies. It's just like, who is reading this book in 2023 other than me? I will say at least the narrator was better than the one for Three Dark Crowns. Small silver lining. And then we had my favourite audiobook of the week, which was Dracula And I hate saying that because like this is like the Audible exclusive one, but like it has Tim Curry, so like yeah, this one was great. I feel like I elevated my experience by listening to this on the way to Whitby, in Whitby, on the way home from Whitby, in the evening thinking about having gone to Whitby. Like I feel like I definitely gave myself just like the best day to listen to this, and I don't know, I just feel like that was a really nice fun day out, even though I was like, I don't want to say deathly ill, but like I basically wasn't able to eat for like 2 days, so I'm still not well, but like that day was like probably like the worst day, so still had a good time overall, and this audiobook definitely helped. Loved the full cast, and I feel like this story holds up really well. So yeah, that is an insane rundown of my week of reading. I feel like it did work for me in that I got loads done. I feel like I had a pretty good time. Like, I don't feel burnt out. I feel like because I'm doing other things at the same time, I feel way more productive than I normally am. And I do think that my ADHD ass brain really likes that I can like multitask to like a new level. So I feel like going from someone who just literally doesn't listen to audiobooks at all to just bombarding my brain with them, I can see why people really like audiobooks. I mean, I kind of knew that from the start, but I definitely feel like there is a lot of merit to listening to audiobooks, maybe like 1 or 2 a month. Like, I totally get why people do that. I just feel like when I'm going through, like, if I'm reading from my own personal favourite genre, I really do want to read that just as like a physical book. And because primarily what I want to be reading is fantasy, it means that there are not a lot of times when I would even consider turning to an audiobook. That said, I think my takeaway from this, my own personal growth, is that I might potentially in the future seek out some other books specifically as audiobooks, and the ones I'm thinking for this are things like the Themis Files, which I do plan to continue, and if I can find them as audiobooks then I will listen to them if I can like get access to those. I feel like it's personal growth to say that I may in fact in the future listen to some more audiobooks. I feel like it might be the perfect kind of thing to do if I like finish a book and instead of wanting to go directly onto the next book, if I just want to spend a day like doing something other than reading, like drawing or bookbinding or sewing or something, then I can maybe just like bang out like a whole audiobook in a day while I do something else, and then it's like a nice little buffer between like moving on to like the next giant brick of a fantasy book. I don't know, maybe I have convinced myself I can, if the stars align and the circumstances are right, I can listen to an audiobook. I feel like I'm definitely an outlier because like I feel like most people really like them, but I've gone from being like a not at all to like a maybe sometimes potentially. So with that said, I don't really want to make this video last any longer than it already is. I'm pretty sure this is going to be like well over an hour, which for a vlog, I don't know who really wants to watch me talk about books for an hour in like vlog mode with my bad camera angles. So I am going to be wrapping this up now. If you did actually make it this far, leave me like a little headphone emoji maybe, and let me know if there are any audiobooks out there that you would recommend for me. Either maybe like your personal favourite audiobook, or like just one that you think I will like, maybe something with the full cast, maybe something that isn't exclusive to Audible, and maybe I'll put like a little list together for like potential future reads if my library has them. And otherwise, yeah, I think that is all for this video. So thank you guys so much for watching if you actually made it this far. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and maybe I will see you in the next one. Bye!